Hello, everyone. We'll begin the meeting. I'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize a long history of First Nations and Métis people on this land and show respect for them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wata Mohawks, and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawnigal, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henby Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokis. As we are learning from our First Nation partners of the Wasauksing First Nations, I want to stress the importance of accepting our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We will look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. We, like all peoples, must accept that we are stewards of creation and that the land comes to us with a responsibility where no hierarchy exists. All life is sacred on earth, in the waters, and in the skies. We have much to learn about the stewardship of our planet to ensure that the decisions we make today will take into consideration the future of our children and that of their children's children. We begin our learning journey today. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby convene this special meeting of council at 2:30 p.m. in order to consider the following matter: short-term rentals. Could somebody move that motion? Councillor Getty. Seconded by Councillor Adams. All in favor? That's carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Does anybody have any? I see none.
Excuse me, I have my hand up.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
No problem. I don't have any pecuniary interests, but I was thinking that for council's information, it might be worthwhile knowing if any of the members of council have a short-term rental or a rental property.
Through the chair to council, any disclosures are strictly up to the individual members of council. That's not up to council as a whole to make that decision or question. That is up to the individual members.
That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby direct staff to update the Township of Seguin bylaws to permit short-term rentals, taking the following actions: improve and expand quality of life bylaws such as existing noise, garbage burning, and other similar bylaws. Introduce a licensing bylaw that would regulate several factors related to short-term rentals, including environmental impacts, sewage, human health, and safety matters, number of guests, noise and nuisance, parking, burning, garbage, and length of stay. Ensure financial sustainability so that the cost to govern and regulate short-term rentals will not be a financial burden to the existing tax base. Can I have a mover? Moved by Mayor McDermott. Seconder? Councillor Fellner? All in favor? Oh, wait, no, sorry, I'm out of turn. I think we have to discuss first. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. So, yes, so we're going to start off with Taylor Algie. He's going to give us do a slide presentation for us.
Yes, I'll share my screen. Just bear with me here. Can everybody see the PowerPoint screen? Yeah, okay. All right. So this presentation will summarize the 20-some page report to just try to be a little bit more succinct. Largely, a short-term rental is any type of dwelling unit that is rented out for 28 days or less in exchange for payment. It can include bed and breakfast. It doesn't necessarily need to, but excludes hotels, motels. You'll see these are the many different vendors. So Airbnb and Verbo are some of the ones that really brought this to the forefront. In Seguin, part of the history is between 2017 tonight, there have been 18 staff reports. We've had at least 2 widespread public consultation, as well as several 100 letters probably received on the topic. And there have been a couple cross-jurisdictional analyses. The intent of tonight's report is to provide a solid recommendation for council to consider. So as part of the background, in Seguin, we know there's a minimum 238 short-term rentals in existence today. From one source, that's Granicus. Another source says there's 260. You can see in the map, most of them are on the water, or the great majority. There has been a 76% growth from last year alone. The lion's share are on Airbnb, but there are several on Expedia, and I believe Expedia owns Verbo. Going next slide. The public consultations, one in 2020 and one last year. We just pulled out the one slide out of each one, and we can share the entire results if anyone would like them. But largely, they came to similar breakdowns or similar findings despite different respondent amounts. So in the 2020, there was criticism that there wasn't enough responses. So the 2022 public engagement sought to increase the amount, but you can still see within a couple points, there is a similar breakdown in the demographics and how people felt on this issue. Rory, did you want to speak to this slide, the quality of life bylaws?
Thank you, Taylor. Sorry about that. Yeah, Supervisor Bylaw Services. So just to talk about strengthening quality of life bylaws. So we have received complaints regarding short-term accommodations revolving around concerns like nuisance parties, noise, illegal parking, use of fireworks, and littering. So to tackle these concerns, we've looked over the strengths and weaknesses of our current bylaws, and we are undergoing a bylaw transformation work plan. So existing bylaws are under review currently with new bylaws in production to ensure bylaw enforcement officers have the tools required to investigate and resolve these kinds of concerns. Of course, this is going to be happening regardless of what decisions made here today.
Okay, next slide. So this slide tries to illustrate some of the challenges of prohibition. We tried to weigh in the pictures, the two sides we've heard, the one back off government and the other side, no one wants to live near a disruptive short-term rental. Apologize for the fuzziness of the pictures. Essentially, our solicitor had advised that if we were to pass a zoning bylaw amendment, prohibit them anywhere in Seguin and everywhere, there would still be legal non-conforming rights for any of the existing ones. We know at minimum this will be anywhere around 250 short-term rentals, and those are just the ones we can find. We're quite certain more would come out of the woodwork who have listed it at one time or another within the past amount of years. Our solicitor also advised, as a result, you would still need a licensing bylaw to deal with some of the side uses and associated impacts of STRs. Staff thought having a two-tiered system would be very difficult to administer and could create a divisive environment in municipality. And it would also lead to several site-specific zoning bylaw amendments, which would be difficult to administer as well. Since our solicitor has advised that staff only really see two options, a permissive approach where we just allow the quality of life bylaws to govern issues that pop up with the issue, or the licensing approach, which staff are the opinion is a bit more proactive and helps reduce some of the symptoms, hopefully before they start. Some of the benefits of licensing is it's the direction the majority municipalities are going, and you can suit the bylaw to suit your community's wants and needs. It helps to reduce the symptoms before they start, so you can have codes of conducts or minimum or maximum lengths of stay. And licenses can be revoked, unlike legal non-conforming rights. You can also deal with issues that you just can't in zoning, like length of stay, and ensuring the septic system is appropriate. So in conclusion, a similar amount of respondents found in both 2020 and the 2022 public engagements that they were in favor of permitting them in one form or another. And of the 260 known short-term rental properties, we've only had 29 properties complained about. And in that regard, we feel that the best approach is a proactive licensing bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, now we're just going to go around the table. I'm going to start with Jason Inwood, the CAO, and we'll go from there to the mayor, and I'll go in order of ward. Sorry. Okay, we'll start with the CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Your Worship, members of council, guests from the public who are joining us this evening or this afternoon, sorry. I just wanted to share that while staff have done a fairly significant amount of work in preparing this sort of first phase, the intent here is to decide, and we hope the council understands that we're to decide if we can, what direction we want to go. This is really a directions report. The fine details of either licensing or prohibition, those are to be worked out. We're here to answer any questions. This is our recommendation. We are strictly recommending to council this pathway forward. If council chooses to go a different direction, that is your decision. But we are here to assist in whatever way we can and answer any questions and look to implement council's direction. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So we'll start with Councillor Adams, Ward 1. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I will start with Mayor McDermott. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I want to say a very special thanks to all of the staff that put this comprehensive report together on short-term rentals. You've covered all of the options well and provided good background and situational analysis on several other municipalities. I know that there are many departments who've contributed to this recommendation, and your cooperation and complementary points of view have helped make this a strong and comprehensive report. I want to stress to all of the councillors that we must make a decision this afternoon. The issue of short-term rentals has been on the council agenda since 2017, and our ratepayers expect us to make a decision to move forward. The status quo is simply no longer acceptable, enforceable, or helping to build our community. The recommendation before you is a combination of strengthening the quality of life bylaws and a registration or licensing program for individuals that choose to rent their properties. The two aspects go hand in hand, they go together, and they need to be developed together. Several of the pieces of correspondence have referred to a 2020 video of me asking Mr. Longo, our solicitor, about our existing bylaw being indefensible. It may have been in 2020, but Mr. Longo and his colleagues no longer agree with this point of view. We are 3 years later, and he and his colleagues are firm that we cannot use zoning to govern human behavior. Zoning governs land use. We're here to give staff direction to accept this combined approach and come back to us with the details of stronger bylaws with enforcement teeth and fines at the same time as bringing us a recommendation that registers property for rents, keeps them safe and regulated to protect our environment and the neighborhoods we value so much. We're not here to define the bylaws or the registration or licensing system today. We are only here to give staff direction on what to develop further. I believe this report sets the stage for Seguin to be a leader in an integrated and comprehensive management of short-term rentals. I look forward to Seguin being an environmental leader and an enabler of responsible renting. We may not get everything right the first time. We must be open to modifying and learning as we embark on this process. I fully support the entire staff recommendation and look forward to more details in the next steps. So I look forward to today's respectful and robust discussion. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now I'll call on Councillor Adams.
Madam Chair, yes. I'm not in support of a license for short-term rentals. I was against short-term rentals before I even became a councillor. In fairness, the home and cottage resident ratepayers, along with lake associations, are trying to protect the beauty in the surroundings that we can all appreciate. Short-term to me, and where a lot of problems occur, is rentals that are 7 days or less. The environment first, the quality of life and water quality has no meaning to weekend renters. I received a lot of emails and phone calls, as I'm sure we all have since we announced this special meeting of council. They had a lot of very strong views on this issue. They had a lot of very important key points that were not part of the survey, and I agree. In my opinion, the bylaw prohibiting short-term rentals should stay in place. Strengthening the bylaw and strongly enforce the bylaw. And in a few years, if things slow down and the bylaws are effective, then maybe relook at introducing a license for short-term rentals. At this time, I don't believe the survey is complete enough to make a decision to introduce license for short-term rentals. I believe a door-to-door survey would have been more effective. Who are we to take ratepayers' quality of life away when so much time has been invested by so many concerned ratepayers? I believe we should listen to the people who live it firsthand and prohibit short-term rentals. Keep the bylaw in place before prohibiting short-term rentals at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. I'll call on Councillor Brzezinski, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to as well compliment the staff in the township for all the work they've done. I think they were given a no-win situation, and they've made the best of it with their background. I too am opposed to the licensing bylaw at this time, and I'll tell you why. I've had numerous calls from not only individuals but lake association presidents, Otter Lake, Salmon Lake, and Rankin Lake, and they're all adamantly opposed to the bylaw. I was at the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities Conference, as was Councillor Getty. And I know when I went to the conference, there was a session on short-term rentals. And there were no easy answers, and there aren't any answers yet. And every municipal representative I talked to said it was a nightmare, and there are lawsuits one way or the other. In some cases, there are lawsuits by short-term rental organizations, and in other cases, there are lawsuits by property owners and associations. I don't think at the present time we really know what the legal situation is, because there have been so many divergent legal opinions in hearings and so on. There was an an LPAT hearing that indicated that short-term rentals were a commercial land use. So they were considered to be a land use. And in that case, they wouldn't fit within the zoning for cottage areas. And it was interesting. I didn't realize how many complaints they had, but 29 complaints out of 260 properties. That's very significant, as is the increase in the number of properties. However, I don't think that we have the tools yet to bring in a bylaw, and I'm not prepared to support a bylaw unless I know exactly what is going to be in it. So I think the bylaw is premature. If it could be shown that it's going to be well functioning, then I might be in support of it, but not likely, and then certainly not at this point in time. It would have to be shown how this bylaw is consistent with the natural place to be, because you're looking at intensification and you're going to have potentially a lot more short-term rentals, because if you open the door, more people will come. I know on Otter Lake, there have been some cases where short-term rental owners have been persuaded to cease the use, and it's worked out positively. So anyway, long and the short of it, I'm not in favor of the bylaw. I am in favor of looking at the quality of life bylaws, because they're quite old and could be certainly reviewed and have public input to bring them up to speed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bazinski. I will now call on Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Councillor Finson. I also, at this time, I'm not in favor of licensing. I do acknowledge that a licensing system would allow for greater inspection and address some of compliance issues. But I, quite frankly, from July of last year till October, I had the opportunity to go to every door in Ward 3. I probably spoke to 600 people. And of anyone who I spoke to in regards to short-term rentals, there was not a single person who was in favor of a licensing system. And I have seen nothing yet to show me to change my mind on that. In regards to the survey, I would like to compliment staff as well. I do not agree with all of the criticisms of the survey process. I think that it was fair. It went through council, and I think it addressed the issues that needed to be addressed. My interpretation of the survey, though, is that 34.1% of our ratepayers approved of licensing, and 65.9% did not approve or want a licensing system. That in itself shows me that we would like, I think our ratepayers would like to look at from a zoning bylaw position. I've reviewed a number of Ontario Land Tribunal decisions, and consistently the Ontario Land Tribunal up into the decisions of 2022 and 2023 are recognizing a municipality's right to zone their waterfront properties as residential, and also that those rulings, there are rulings that indicate that premises that are being operated as short-term rentals, and by those I think we all agree, and every municipality is trying to struggle with the same thing, in that it's the daily rental or the weekend party house or anything less than a week. The Oro Medonte case is being appealed, and the reason why, in my view, the Oro Medonte case has been appealed is because it was too encompassing, because even the Ontario Land Tribunal recognized that part of the cottage culture is the occasional 1 to 2 week rental of your property, and people should be able to do that. I believe people should be able to continue to do that without having to put them under a blanket licensing program. There are a number of systems for tracking short-term rentals. I see that we use Granicus, which is the same process that Tiny Township used when they did theirs. Harmari is another one that Prince Edward County used. And I think that by recognizing those, utilizing those to assist bylaw in.
Sound is gone. Can't hear anything?
Still on.
There you go.
I think that by utilizing those processes, we can enhance a bylaw's ability to identify problem premises that are operating within waterfront properties and provide them with the a lot of the preliminary evidentiary requirements to take a prosecution to court. One of the other concerns that I have in regards to licensing short-term rentals, there's been a number of studies done. David Washmuth is his actual title is the Canada Research Chair in Urban Governance. He was commissioned by Prince Edward County and as well the City of Ottawa in regards to their investigation into short-term rentals. Any short-term rental licensing has a negative impact on affordable housing and affordable rent in any community that it's licensed in. We have an affordability issue here in the township, right across the township. Not only on the lakes, we can't get accommodation, rental or housing accommodation for people that they can come here to work and live. And I think that a housing affordability is a big factor at this point, and for a number of other reasons, but not to keep beating it. At this point, I'm not in favor of a licensing. I am in favor 100% of the improve and expand the quality of life bylaws, as well as the ensuring the financial sustainability, which I believe can be done under a municipal administrative monetary penalty system. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to thank staff for obviously the tremendous amount of work that went into this report. It's very seldom I end up with a binder, a half an inch thick, but all good points. I think though I am not in favor of licensing short-term rentals, and by that I mean I don't think that a property zone residential has any business operating as a daily or weekend rental or anything under a month or repetitive weekly rental through the month. So I know the official definition of an STR is under 28 days. To me, sort of the cut point, I think, is about 2 weeks. I think, you know, a lot of, this is a tough issue, and we've been sort of dancing around this for 4 years, and the council prior to us had been dancing around longer. And it's when you look at what other municipalities had tried, the jury's still out, in my opinion, with licensing. Some of them are, I think, better, you know, better documents than other ones. Some municipalities don't really have the same kind of issues that we have in Seguin. Their rental accommodations are more condo, they're more for season, there's other issues. I did, however, look and see that a municipality fairly closely here, the Lake of Bays, introduced a short-term rental policy. Came in effect January 2022. It's a pretty comprehensive document. It's basically a rezoning document. I mean, we do allow daily rentals in Seguin. We do allow weekly rentals. We have the zoning to permit that with our C4 zoning. We all know every time that anybody brings a piece of C4 property in for a rezoning, what kind of a, what kind of public interest that attracts. But I mean, the opportunity for nightly accommodation, weekly accommodation is presently in the township, and it's compliant. So at this point in time, I'm very much in favor. So what my suggestion would be is to monitor. I see now that since January 2022, that Lake of Bays has got about 129 properties registered. They've run 1 year. They've got some pretty, I would suspect on their criteria that these of the 200 properties that are currently operating in Seguin, at least a half of them wouldn't qualify. But my suggestion would be to reach out and track how they're doing this year, and then in the interim, because I don't want to stand still, and I don't want to. It's the nuisance renters that are causing the issues. The calls are for noise, parties, drunken parties, fights. We've had some fights. Those are the issues. And I think we need to put some teeth into our quality of life bylaws, in which the owner's charged, the occupant's charged. I think it should be a different set of penalties when the owner's present and when the owner isn't present. And if that time it's determined that the owner isn't present and the evidence shows through the system that the planning's using presently that it's being operated as a short-term rental, then I think we should vigorously prosecute them under our existing zoning. We've done that in the past. Most of the work has been trying to prove they're actually renting it. If you remember now, the proof is right there electronically. And in every case that we prosecuted in the past, we didn't make it to court. The owner ceased and desist, sold the rental property and moved from the township. So that's my opinion on this. I want rentals in cottage country in Seguin, Foley, Christie, Humphrey, and cottages have been compliantly rented for decades with no issues. It's the short-term cottages rented for profit that are causing us these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fellner, and I'll call on Councillor Collins, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to start by saying how much I respect and how highly I think of our Seguin staff. There isn't a better assembly of individuals who could run our township better than they can. Thank you for all your time and work and energy bringing your presentation to council. I applaud you. So I'm going to start off by saying that what are we dealing with? I calculate a 1.5 to 2% of total residential property in Seguin. I've managed to obtain more information on a few other municipalities who permitted licensing of STRs. They are the municipalities of Minden, Collingwood, Grand Bend, Bracebridge, Trent Lakes, Peterborough County, Huntsville, Severn, Lake of Bays, to name a few. And at this time, they are all having problems dealing with enforcement issues because of noise, animals, open air fires, fireworks, fire safety, garbage, parking, smell of overused septic systems, and most importantly, changing the character of waterfront neighborhoods and loss of community values because of transient non-resident owners. Those municipalities are dealing in real time with these issues I just mentioned. Now, here's something interesting that caught my eye while researching STRs. This is about another municipality that did their damn best to license STRs and the trials and tribulations to achieve their goal. This municipality covers 340 square kilometers and has over 70 kilometers of Georgian Bay coastline and encompasses 5 communities and hamlets similar to Seguin. Their council has had numerous meetings over the years, the topic, of course, STRs. So finally, council decided to do something about it. And in February 2021, they asked staff to come back with a short-term rental licensing program and even formed a short-term rental task force committee made up of 4 non-elected citizens, 2 property owners in favor for licensing, 2 property owners against licensing, 2 councillors, and staff from bylaw, planning, building, and fire, and the CAO as chair of the task force. In my opinion, a well-planned group of committee members. Their terms of reference was to review the current short-term rental situation, to review potential official plan and zoning regulations, and to report back to council. And they even went further and got 2 separate legal opinions before moving forward. Subsequent to meetings in September, October, November, and December 21, the task force concluded that an annual STR licensing program with a renter's code of conduct move forward. Now it gets exciting because now in-depth discussions into zoning, official plan amendments, and bylaw amendments take its course on the task force to deal with these changes, plus new rules and life safety issues of renters. Now in January 22, the discussion turns to zoning standards as it relates to STRs, minimum areas, minimum lot coverages, setbacks, use of accessory buildings, establishing minimum parking requirements, minimum separation distancing, etc. Then again in February 22, more revised language for a zoning bylaw and official plan amendments based on their previous discussions in January 22. Now this review was the 3rd draft, and they now wanted to further edit the renter's code of conduct. The task force was to sign off on the complete scope of the work as amended in March of 22. Well, that meeting never took place. The task force was not able to finalize the recommendations to council. Council disbands the task force. Now council methodically works together with staff for the remainder of the year. And finally, in January 2023, the licensing program was implemented to the public and made law. It is a rigorous and comprehensive program. It covers fees, renter's code of conduct, license requirements, proof of ownership, site diagram and floor plans, proof of insurance, inspections by licensed electrical contractors, a record of maintenance for smoke and carbon monoxide tests, and a demerit point system for owners and renters. And the list goes on and on and on. What was unforeseen was the fact that two new advocacy groups were now formed. One, a Good Neighbors Alliance, that does not support the licensing of STRs, and the other, an association of responsible short-term rental owners. Both have now hired legal counsel. Both are suing the township and the OLT. This is ongoing as I speak. The SDR program isn't over for them, it's just begun. It has split a township. And I'm not sure if I'm willing to head in that same direction. There is no one good news story from any municipality licensing STRs anywhere in the province. Do we really want to go down that path? At this time, Seguin residents enjoy living here. Living here is not only good for your physical health, but your mental well-being too. With our friendly community, strong sense of belonging, and a slower pace of life, it is a place where you can truly relax and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Quality of life is most important to me, and the level of satisfaction and comfort we have now is solid. I think we need to strengthen bylaws to support quality of life and strengthen bylaws to support zoning. Bylaws are law. Opening up the entire township to license STRs will not solve rental issues. It will only create additional uncertainty, confusion, misunderstanding, and a whole pile of other problems to contend with. We need a specific bylaw for STRs only, as we do for noise, for dogs, for fireworks, not licensing. What about the silent majority? The other 98%, what do they think? I remain and circle back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Okay, it's my turn. I'm Councillor Finson, and I will give. I have thought this over. I've been involved in it. This is my second term of council, so I'm very familiar with the issues with short-term rentals. I have some myself, but I've come to the conclusion. I got up at 2 o'clock. I've been reading all night. I've been reading before that on short-term rentals, what works and what doesn't work. And most communities are going to short-term rentals. I have big issues. I do. I have issues with people who buy for investment, and then, you know, there's 22 people every week. And I don't agree that 2 days is the bad people. Those people that are paying a lot of money for 7 days, they're going to enjoy themselves. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But I do disagree with that. I disagree that you should have a property with no skin in the game just for investment on our lakes, because your neighbor bought their property to enjoy it. And you can't enjoy it with 17 new people every week, because some of them are pretty big I'm Ward 6, I'm Lake Rosso. So some of those properties are really big and there's a lot of people. But as I say that, when I was reading the number, I was reading what other municipalities are doing, there are limits. Like, you can put limits, and I'm still not sure I understand licensing totally, but you can put limits on the number of people. You can put limits on the number of days that are rented. You can put limit. The way we are now, we can't limit them. You can just go and you can, as far as I know, you can tell them this is not allowed, but then that's a very expensive process. As we know, we've done it twice since I've been on council, and luckily we came out okay, but it's still costly. It's a costly process. And I would like to see, and from what I read from the survey, it's 30, 30, 30. And the 30%, well, not 30, 30, 30, but 34, 31, 33. The number of people who just said, well, I don't care, just leave it the way it is. That doesn't count for or against, in my opinion. That's I don't have enough interest to give an opinion on whether we should or shouldn't have them. So I think that we have split, kind of equal each section. So I know I'm the only one that I would like to see some kind of licensing that was comprehensive and covered things, and we could try to make everybody happy, try to make the people who don't want to be disturbed, make it so that they'll be okay. And the people that want to help. I know somebody not in this area, but in Muskoka, that pays her taxes she rents it once for a month and she pays her taxes. That's how she pays her tax. She's a single person and she's on Lake Rosso, but that's how she pays her taxes. So I don't have a problem with that. Or neighbors, or, I'm on the Shadow River. There's some people just down the street from me that, their place isn't very big. It's the old small place. And sometimes they stay at my house. So things like that, there's no accommodation. There's not a lot of accommodation in the township. There's a couple of B&Bs, but there's not a lot. So I think that I would like to see something. I would like to see something other than just like, we have to do something. We can't just leave it the way it is, because people are breaking the rules, and that's okay. And I guess that's okay, because we haven't done anything about it. And I would also say that it would be nice to be the bylaws are going to be fixed no matter what. That's what I heard. I heard the bylaws will be reviewed no matter what happens today. We will have some better bylaws to deal with fireworks. Because, you know, I get it. Every single night, some summers, every night, there's fireworks every single night. And I can hear them on the river, but they're nowhere near me. They're way out on the lake. But, you know, and people have animals and it's scary. And so that kind of thing. But we need to curb that. And I think we can do that. That's pretty simple. And actually, since just in the last year or so, since we've had some new people on our team, we have had less of that. We've had less fireworks infractions. And I mean, it's not a nice thing to happen. I mean, I'm on the river. I remember there was a couple of rentals that had sea-doos. And you know, there's a no wake zone on the river. They didn't care. They didn't care. And they didn't even take them back. You know, they did just left them there in the where they rented. So, you know, people think that when you're paying a lot of money and you're coming to a fantastic place like this, they can do whatever they want. So I think both things, if we're not going to choose licensing today, I would like to see some licensing. I would like to see people who do have some businesses and who are managing some of these properties be able to still do that, just not to the extent that they're being done now. And I think we could do a really good job. I think we have a fantastic staff. The report they gave us was just an outline. It's not what we're going to do. It is just telling you what they recommend we could do that would make it easier. So I think you can put rules and regulations. People may not like them. And to Councillor Collins' point, you know, they're getting all worked up about it. But I do think that there's possibilities, you know, if we don't do this today, I would love to, you know, I'd investigate it myself and bring it back because I think it's important. It's important that everybody gets heard, not just part of the people. I think everybody can be heard and we can come to some situation where it works for everybody. That's what I would like to see. I read a lot last night about different areas and what they're doing, and some of the things that they're doing are interesting. And I really think that as more communities are doing these short-term rentals, they're finding out what doesn't work. So I mean, if you can put into place something that works from the beginning, I think that would be good for everybody in the community. I think it's not going to stop. It does, and that's my opinion. It's not going to stop if you don't license it. It's not. People aren't going to stop renting. You're just going to have more work to do trying to figure out who's doing it and not supposed to be. But so I would vote yes. I see that it's not I really think that there is a place for some kind of deal that helps everybody, that some kind of licensing that would allow everybody to enjoy their properties. And with new bylaws, you could, you know, be in control of it. But anyway, that's all I have to say now. What I would like to do is ask if there's any questions or if anybody has anything further to say at this point, and I will pick hands and let you speak.
Jenny's.
We can't take questions from the audience. I'm sorry, because this is a council session. I'm sorry. Councillor Adams.
Like I said in one line, like the bylaws, of course, the bylaws started as strengthened. Once we get that.
Councillor Adams needs to push his speaker button.
No, I forget. Like in a few years, like they need to strengthen the bylaws, the quality of life bylaws. And I agree, maybe in a few years, if things are slowing down, if they can control the renting now and get it to a minimum or like really low, then maybe look at it again then in a few years when the bylaws are stronger.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Brzezinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of additional things. In terms of the financial implications, I think you've heard some of the other councillors say that there's been, you know, additional lawyers hired, there's been committees struck, there's been a whole variety of things happen that has cost, I mean, the implication is it's cost a lot of money. And nobody has the answer yet. So I would prefer to let somebody else do it on their dime, because one of my key points when I was running for election was I'd like to see fiscal responsibility. And I don't really want, the document we have, a lot of hard work went into it, but it doesn't really give much of a framework for moving forward. There'd have to be a lot more work done, more lawyers consulted, trial and error cases, potential lawsuits. I don't really want Seguin to have to go through that. I would like other municipalities to go through it, and we can pick the best. I think it's really, at this point in time, it's premature to pass a bylaw like this. And there's so much more I'd want to know about, what are the implications going to be on the person that has a basement apartment in the township that's renting it out and it's not in a commercial zoning. And is he going to have to, or she going to have to go through the whole permit application process and suffer the inspections and so on? And how much is that going to cost? $750, $3,000 perhaps, like in some municipalities? He's probably not going to rent his basement apartment out, and then there'll be less affordable housings available. So I honestly think it's not that I'm trying to cause anyone harm or anything, but I just don't think now is the right time to do it when there's so many unanswered questions in terms of cost and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brzezinski. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Getty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that I've already stated my position in regards to licensing, but I think whether a township has a system of licensing or a system of zoning compliance, we're looking at dealing with our problems. Whatever reaction we have is going to be complaint based. So and not that I'm a fan of American courts, but I know that in New Orleans, they threw out their short-term accommodation bylaw, their short-term regulations. And the reason that they threw it out in the courts was because they had quality of life bylaws in place, and the municipality had not fulfilled their responsibility to utilize those effectively to protect the interests of people that were affected by it. So the OLT decisions that I've been looking at and reviewing for the last, since this has become or quite a while, indicate that the OLT supports municipalities specifically in regards to low density designations, which is what we're dealing with here. And I know a lot of people reference the Collingwood decision and the case of that. Collingwood not only has medium and high density housing zoning, but they also have low density. And in fact, the OLT recognized their right to prohibited short-term rentals within the low density areas. They also have a different infrastructure program than we have. We are a septic-based community, as well as a number of the properties that are in this community are accessed by deeded right-of-ways that were granted by property owners for the sole purpose of allowing people to come in to use them as recreational cottages, not as daily rental, short-term commercial properties. And I think we have a responsibility at this point to protect those interests of those ratepayers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner.
One comment, further on the quality of life bylaws, that I would like to see some draft improvements to the existing bylaws with proposed fee structure sooner rather than later. My hope would be that we could get them into place for the upcoming summer season.
Thank you, Councillor Fellner. Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just quickly respond to Councillor Fellner's comment. At the next regularly scheduled meeting of council, you'll see a couple of first passes of our a couple of the quality of life bylaws coming forward, including a report that outlines the newly established bylaw department's work plan on how to address the remaining and the prioritization and timing around that. We want to make sure that while we've established what we believe to be an appropriate prioritization exercise, we'd like council to just have a chance to weigh in on that. And perhaps just to help with the rest of the conversation here, I think we've heard pretty clearly where council sits. Clearly, there's a focus on prioritizing those quality of life bylaws and making them meaningful and impactful. What I think I'm also hearing from council is to continue to monitor what's happening with short-term rentals across Ontario and look at a variety of different examples on how they're being managed. And to explore creative and innovative ways to move forward, including how to address, I know council hasn't specifically spoken about this, but this is a task for us, how to address sort of the legal non-conforming uses component of the report. So if there's anything further, we're happy to take any suggestions from council, but I think we have a general sense of what council has asked for out of this. So I'm happy if there's any feedback from council on that direction.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else like to speak to the matter?
I do.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Mayor McDermott.
Who?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Councillor Collins, I didn't see your hand. I was asking Mayor
Oh.
McDermott. She has her hand up.
But
Okay,
Sorry.
I completely agree that we've heard loud and clear, and I think what Jason has summarized is the right direction for staff. I ask Craig or Jason if that is enough to give staff direction to improve and expand the quality of life bylaws. And I knew about the impending report in April. As Jason and I have discussed, new fines are likely not to happen quickly because they have to go through the Attorney General. But I would encourage, if we're giving enough direction to staff, to expedite as much of that as you can and continue to monitor what's going on in neighboring municipalities. Is that sufficient direction to staff, or do we actually need to pass a bylaw?
Jason?
Through you, Madam Chair, there is a resolution on the table that'll have to be voted on, and
Okay.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it'll likely be defeated based on the conversation. I believe the direction to staff is pretty clear. I've got a list of notes. Of course, this meeting is recorded, so we can always go back and just reaffirm that my notes are complete and the staff sitting at their desks, their notes are complete, but I think we have enough to advance. I'll look to Craig just to confirm that.
The minutes will be fairly concise on the 3 points that the CAO outlined. The actual details of that, as he has stated, staff have the recording to go back.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Getty? Oh, sorry, Councillor Collins.
yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. As bylaw sits now, I know that we have enforcement for noise, a specific bylaw for noise, a specific bylaw for animals and fireworks, so on and so forth, but we do not have a specific bylaw to for STRs. And that's something we should be looking into. Because obviously we all know it's not about zoning. It's about nailing down a bylaw specifically for ETRs with teeth in it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Jason, would you like to speak to that?
Again, I think thank you, Councillor Collins. I think we've heard you loud and clear. I'd like to take that away and work with our team here to come up with a recommendation on the bylaw side with relation to short-term rentals. I think we have a bit of work to do there. As I noted about sort of finding some creative and innovative ways to move forward. So if council's comfortable, I would just like to take that away and do some exploration and let the team get to work here.
Thank you. Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Collins, I think from what I've researched, the Ontario Land Tribunal has recognized that daily rentals or rentals less than 1 week are in fact commercial ventures, and that are not in compliance in low density zoning. So I do believe that our zoning bylaw does at this point still give us some enforcement capability in regards to them. And my next question is procedural, because we do have a motion before council. Would it be prudent to make an amendment to remove point number 2 and pass or just let it go forward the way it is? And that's
Jason.
a learning curve for me. I'm just.
We're happy to take whatever direction council would like to pursue. I think we've identified already, Councillor Getty, that we are already actively working on quality of life. The bylaws, the report speaks to the fact that regardless of the outcome of today's discussion, those quality of life bylaws are already being worked on. So I think that is covered there. And ensuring financial sustainability is the third component. That is our job. So if you want to pass a resolution that directs us to be financially sustainable, so be it. I think the organization has demonstrated over the last number of years that we continue to operate financially in a financially sustainable way. I think, frankly, if you just defeat the motion, as I suspect it'll be, then we have our marching orders.
And Jason, in fairness, the question was asked because I know how much work staff has put into it, and I know how much work there is to continue with it. And it was for the purpose of taking it off the table for them, not to question anything that they've done before now.
Yeah, I think Councillor Getty, appreciate that, and I think we clearly understand that, so we're good.
Councillor Adams.
Something I didn't do, and I'm upset with myself. I did not thank the staff for the great work they did on the survey, and I apologize for that because they did do a great job.
Thank you. And anybody else have any questions? No, I would also like to say thank you to the staff. They done a great job, and I will ask all in favor at this point. And
all in favor of what?
I'm sorry, I read the motion before. Do you want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
No? Who says no?
It's on the whole motion's on page 2 of the staff report.
Yeah, I'll read it again. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby direct staff to update the Township of Seguin's bylaws to permit short-term rentals, taking the following actions: improve and expand quality of life bylaws, such as existing noise, garbage burning, and other similar bylaws, introducing a licensing bylaw that would regulate several factors related to short-term rentals, including environment impact, sewage, human health and safety matters, number of guests, noise and nuisance parking, burning, garbage, and length of stay. Ensure financial sustainability so that the cost to govern and regulate the short-term rentals will not be a financial burden to the existing tax base. And that was moved by Ann and seconded Ann McDermott and seconded by Terry Fellner. And so all in favor and all opposed. Okay. Thank you. The motion is defeated. Bylaw number 2023-032, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Adams? And a seconder? Councillor Fellner. All in favor? Carried. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this special meeting of council at 3:35 p.m. to meet again on April the 3rd, 2023, or at the call of the mayor. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Getty? And a seconder? Councillor Basinski? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.